According to the Russian military commander Igor Girkin, Russia has lost approximately 70% of its forces in Kherson region, which is a crucial territory in the south of Ukraine. Without a doubt, this is a significant loss, which makes many people believe that Ukraine will be able to liberate the majority of the south of the country in the nearest future and change the future of the war. Why Russian presence decreased so much in the south? What are the goals of Ukraine in this region? And how will this affect the future of the war? And these are the questions that we'll be talking about in today's video. What's up, investors, MO, and people of Reddit? It's the Russian Dude, and this is your daily update on Russian-Ukrainian war as of Monday, June 13th. You can see the main events of the day to my right, along with the timestamps. Hope you all had a wonderful weekend. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, this is pretty important because the Russian commander Igor Girkin acknowledged himself that Russian forces decreased by approximately 70% in Kherson region, which is in the south of Ukraine. And this guy, Igor Girkin, he's not like someone who just came out of nowhere. He was one of the main political figures when Russia annexed Crimea back in 2014. Besides that, he was behind creating these military separatist groups in Donbass region. So yes, as you can see, this guy took very big part in this Russian-Ukrainian war. And whenever he makes statements like this, it makes you actually think that this might be most likely true. And so right now, I'm going to be presenting you the evidence supporting his claim that Russia is doing pretty bad, at least in the south of the country. So first of all, here is the Kherson region, which is at this very moment is under the control of Russian forces. And because recently Russia relocated the majority of its forces from the south to the east of the country, first of all, the presence of Russians decreased in Kherson region as well. All this allowed Ukrainian army to launch several successful counterattacks against Kherson region. And to be honest, it is going to be pretty hard for Russia to remain its positions in the south of the country, because one of the major events that happened in the past was when Ukrainian forces were able to sink Russian Navy flagship Moskva. And one of the main responsibilities of this battleship was to secure the attack against the south of the country. And so right now Russia no longer has the support on the Black Sea, and the number of Russian soldiers decreased significantly. Russia tried to get some of its soldiers back into the south of Ukraine, but this counteroffensive was prevented by Ukrainian forces. And so Russia was just most likely, okay, let's just finish invading east first and then we'll take care of the south. Because of this, there were reports that the Russian army tried to invade the Zaporozhye region, where they met significant resistance from Ukrainian army, and that is why they had to change their direction. After this, Russian soldiers started once again going towards the east of the country, specifically the city of Orekhovo. And so it looks like Russia finally decided to switch its total attention to the east of the country, and that is what we have at this very moment in this region. The main battle of this war at this very moment is still the same, which is the battle for the city of Severodonetsk, where according to the head of Lugansk region, Sergei Gaidai, only 30% of the city is still under the control of Ukrainian forces. Russia sends almost daily reinforcements into the city, that is why Ukrainian resistance is getting unfortunately weaker. One of the main battles at this very moment is happening in the industrial zone of the city, specifically for the factory called Azot. And it is estimated that approximately 500 people are hiding beneath this factory, which is basically exactly the same situation as Azovstal in Mariupol. Besides that, Sergei Gaidai reported that all 3 bridges which were leading inside the Severodonetsk city are completely destroyed, which basically means the evacuation and humanitarian support to Ukrainians at this very moment is impossible, as the city is under literal siege by the Russian army and the remaining Ukrainian forces are unfortunately most likely surrounded. So, if you remember from the last week, one of the main new goals of Russia at that moment was to capture the city of Slavyansk. And Russia was previously attacking just from the north and northeast of this region. But recently they started sending reinforcements from the city of Izum, which is the northwest of this city. And as for now, Ukrainian army is able to resist the attacks and the city of Slavyansk is still under the control of Ukrainian army. The reason why would Russia needs to capture the city of Slavyansk is so they can open another front of attacking the city of Severodonetsk. And recently Russia tried to open completely new front of attacking Severodonetsk, which is from the south of the country. And for this, Russian army needs to capture the city of Orekhovo. And it is estimated that this is where the reinforcements of Russia from the south came from. The goal of capturing the city of Orekhovo is to once again opened the attack against Severodonetsk from the south of the city. But as for now, Ukrainian army was able to completely resist all the attacks against this city. And so, even though Ukrainian army is experiencing significant difficulties in protecting the city of Severodonetsk, it is still holding at this moment. So, what we have right now is that Ukrainian army is increasingly successful in the south of the country, and they're kinda in a very bad situation in the east of the country. Ukrainians are trying to distribute their forces more or less equally between these two regions, and one of the main goals at this very moment is to liberate the south of Ukraine. But at the same time, Russia decided to concentrate mainly in the east of the country. And that is why I'm personally assuming that Ukraine will be able to liberate the south of its country in the nearest future. And this idea is also confirmed by the recent statement by the President Zelensky. And he said that Ukraine must not forget that those territories in the south, especially Crimean Peninsula, were unlawfully occupied by Russians since 2014. And that is why locals should be constantly reminded that this is a Ukrainian land. Zelensky also said that the Ukrainian army will do everything possible to get back lost territories, including Crimea. And by the way, if you like this style of daily news reporting, feel free to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Also, please make sure to check the link in the description if you wish to support Ukraine with us. You'll get additional content such as daily Zoom calls and Q&A sessions, and all the proceeds will be donated to Ukraine at the end of each month. You can also show your one-time support to this channel by pressing this button below the video. Thanks so much, and let's continue. Welcome to another episode of Ridiculous Russian Propaganda, and boy oh boy, today we have a very special one. So there was this news report which was circulating among major Russian TV channels last week about this small Ukrainian school which was celebrating some kind of holiday, which kinda doesn't sound anything suspicious at all until you realize what these kids were eating. And the Russian propaganda said that the main menu of Ukrainian kids during this Ukrainian holiday was the blood of Russian newborns and brains of Russian politicians. And I mean, I'm not even sure if this actually happened or not, or this is just Russian propaganda decided to hire some Russian actors to make them look like Ukrainians. Which, to be honest, would make even more sense. But even if this actually happened in the reality, I'm pretty certain that this was just a fun activity by this Ukrainian school. I don't think that they meant anything bad behind doing this. They were just kind of making fun. But no, not if you are Russian propaganda. In this case, they were like, look at these kids, look at these future Ukrainians who will be killing your kids. That is why we have to liberate Ukraine from these Nazis. How ridiculous these Nazis are if they're teaching this level of things to their own kids. So basically, yes, pretty unbelievable. So, if you remember, McDonald's stopped its business activities in Russia, and during past weekend McDonald's reopened in Russia under completely new brand name. And so the new name of McDonald's in Russia is Delicious. Period. And in this picture right here, you can see the comparison between the first day of the actual McDonald's opening in the USSR back in the 90s and the first day of Delicious period opening in Russia during these weekends. Today, Russian-American historian Yuri Fishinski gave an interview to Ukrainian media. And so he was basically characterizing and explaining the strategy of Putin in dealing with this war. The first important statement that he mentioned is that in case Putin will not be able to achieve his goals in Ukraine, he will most likely just keep bombing the country. Which is like, if I cannot meet my goals, you will not have a country either. And the second statement that Yuri made was something that we were already talking about in the past couple of episodes. So he was saying that the Russian army is using Soviet tactics, which basically means that Russia is using as many people as possible to meet their objectives no matter the cost. So instead of using geography, logistics, or other important modern military tactics, Russia is just meeting its objectives with numbers. Because according to Yuri Fishinski, the main resource of Putin, which he thinks will never end, is the human resource. So it's like if you cannot take the city with 5,000 soldiers, just send 20,000 there. So if you remember, approximately last month I was talking about how the widows of those Russian soldiers who died in Ukraine were receiving something like at 10,000 rubles, which was, according to the exchange rate at that moment, was a little bit less than $200. So this gives you a very big understanding how valuable is Russian life in the Russian army. But at the same time, whenever the parents of Russian soldiers want to simply know whether their kids are still alive or not in Ukraine, they are always facing lies from the Ministry of Defense of Russia. And so we have just yet another confirmation of this unfortunate attitude towards regular Russians. We have this poor mother Yegorova Olga who wanted to inquire about the destiny of her son who probably died in Ukraine, Sergei Yegorov. What she was able to learn is that unfortunately, yes, her son most likely died in Ukraine on May 12th. But only recently she received an explanation under which circumstances her son died. And just believe it or not, according to the Ministry of Defense of Russia, her son just drank too much diesel fuel and that's why he died. Just imagine the level of disrespect towards Russian parents. It is pretty certain, unfortunately, at this very moment, that the main goal of Russia in this case is to hide the true number of losses. Finally, Russian government started thinking about Russians. What I'm talking about here is that the Russian parliament adopted a law which allows Russians not to pay capital gains taxes. But here is one catch. The only people who are released from paying capital gains taxes are those Russians who are currently under Western sanctions. And you guessed it right, the majority of these people are businessmen, politicians and oligarchs. So yes, Russia finally started protecting their own, because obviously this is the group of people that needs the most support. Okay, so here we have the statement of Russian infiltrator in Zaporozhye region, Vladimir Rogov, which is on the borderline between this report and ridiculous Russian propaganda segment. So this guy said that according to him, Ukrainian forces finally stopped killing Ukrainian residents in his region. And then he was like, but hold your horses, don't start celebrating way too early. Because even though they stopped bombing their own countrymen, they haven't stopped yet intimidating them. And yes, this is just almost purely translation of his exact quote, which can be interpreted something as following. Imagine, for example, your own country, and I know that there are many people who watch my videos from different countries, so let's just talk about, for example, America. And so America suddenly, for no reason, started invading Canada. And then some American infiltrators in the province of Ontario started saying that we were protecting Canadians. Because according to our intelligence, the army of Canada was killing civilians in province of Ontario. And that is why we had to invade Ontario and protect Canadians from Canadians. So yes, obviously it might sound absurd, but this is what Russian propaganda gives to Russian people. So, if you remember, a couple of weeks ago, Russia started issuing Russian passports to those Ukrainian residents who live in the Melitopol and Kherson region. And since then, already a whopping 25 people in Kherson region received Russian passports. Which I guess kinda gives you the understanding how much Ukrainians want to become Russians. And this is also taking into consideration that European countries acknowledged that they will not recognize these Russian passports, which basically means those people will not be able to travel and use these passports. And I'm even pretty certain that even these 25 people who did receive new Russian passports, they were kind of forced to do this. Maybe they were offered some money, or maybe they were even threatened if they're not gonna do this, but the result is the same. These Ukrainians who ended up getting Russian passports, Russian propaganda was using them as an example, such as basically like, look at this, Ukrainians want to become Russians. Yesterday, Sunday, June 12th, Russia was celebrating the Day of Russia. And one of the country leaders who congratulated Russia with this holiday was the leader of North Korea, Kim Jong-un. During his congratulations speech, Kim Jong-un also said that North Korea fully supports Russia in a special military operation. Russia welcomes new ally among its ranks. So, as you might already know, Ukraine at this very moment is in the process of applying to the European Union. The predictions are pretty positive, and most likely eventually Ukraine will end up joining the alliance. And even though last week several countries were against giving Ukraine this official applicant status, they still released their recommendations. So it's like they're not saying no, we don't want Ukraine in this European Union, but here are the recommendations, and as soon as you can solve these problems, you are more than welcome to join the alliance. And so the biggest problems that the European Union wants Ukraine to solve before they will let them join the alliance are the following. First of all is the corruption. Second is that the democracy is basically not perfect. Third is that the economy and politics is mainly controlled by oligarchs. And finally is the poverty and nationalism in some regions. And so, like mentioned previously, as soon as Ukraine shows that they're trying to solve these problems, most likely all the countries will be more than welcoming for Ukraine to join the alliance. Thank you so much for your attention, check the link in the description, stay safe and see you tomorrow.